Of course not.
If you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you'll know that my rating system is based upon Nicolas Cage's out of 5. According to what some would think that is his worst movies or most peculiar movies, is how it starts at the bottom of the rating and then we get all the way up to movies like Pig, which would be near the top. And so when it comes to me reviewing a Nicolas Cage film, a new one, I get really excited. We're going to be talking about Dream Scenario. Let's jump in. A hapless family man finds his life turned upside down when millions of strangers suddenly start seeing him in their dreams. When his nighttime appearances take a nightmarish turn, Paul is forced to navigate his newfound stardom. So Nic Cage plays Paul Matthews, Julianne Nicholson plays Janet Matthews, and Lily Bird plays Sophie Matthews. Directed by Kristoffer Borgli, a director I've never heard of before. So I went into this knowing it was a Nic Cage film, seeing a couple of seconds, probably like 10 seconds of the trailer, and then I switched off because I like to go into movies as fresh as possible. I don't quite do like Movies and Munchies when he's in the cinema and there's a trailer coming up for a film he wants to see and he runs out. I don't do that, but for the most part I try to avoid any kind of marketing because I want to go with a fresh perspective, especially when it comes to a Nic Cage film.
Mostly.
Now, I can understand people's perspectives on Nic Cage film, ranging from his early works, the ones that you kind of know him for.
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
And then in later on, there was like this dip of he was choosing roles that he really wanted to do, but weren't particularly fantastic, or depending on your viewpoint, he did some really out there films that I didn't think were great either. One of the worst films ever made, in fact, was in my top 10 worst films of all time, is a Nic Cage film, and that's coming from a massive fan of Nic Cage, not because he was bad in the film, just because the film was bad. So I went into this understanding that we've had a sort of resurgence of Nic Cage films, some fantastic works, like I mentioned, Pig, and then some that are just really out there, which I love to watch as well.
Shoot him again.
What?
Fool. His soul's still dancing.
The thing you need to know about this film is it's not gonna be for everyone. It is an A24 film, so it has an indie vibe to it. It has a... I guess people hold this production studio up in a value of some kind because some of their films that they've had on their docket have done really well. I'm not one of those that go, hey, this is an A24 film, you should watch this. I just go on the film itself. When it comes to the film itself, it's wonderful to watch. It's mesmerizing. The story itself, the mystery, is played really well. But the reason why I say it's not going to be for everybody, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable in the best way possible. If you look at a film like Adaptation, that's kind of how our character looks like as a professor who is...
Personality disorder.
He has great life, but he's just not feeling his life. He wants more for it. He is a tenured professor, he has a beautiful wife, 2 daughters. He wants to get published, but he's seeing everybody else go on with their life. He just is a character that feels unsatisfied with his life. He's also awkward and easily pushed around. In his first dream, that the daughter mentioned that she sees him in her dreams and he never helps her whenever there's something going wrong. And that's kind of the demeanor of this character. He's not necessarily a character that will help you in a fight. He's more likely gonna be the one that stands and watches.
Popping up in my dreams. You don't do anything, you're just there.
So as he gets this fame, we get an insight into this character, this professor who wants more from life, and what that means when you get stardom, how that character will react. The thing is, this character feels so human. It's frustratingly so human. Nic Cage plays this perfectly. There are moments that are so emotional and raw and real that you kind of want to shake the character to make better decisions, but it's so human that it's probably the right decision because that's probably what that character, if that was a real human person, would do in real life.
Have you been dreaming about me?
Have I been dreaming about you?
Yeah.
You can totally get lost in the drama of this story. And when it comes to the supernatural space of this, it's very much grounded in what would happen in our reality. So if we're all dreaming about the same guy and it starts off innocent but then ends up nightmarish, how society would react in that, and it flips it on both sides because we're seeing it from their perspective. There's one guy walking around that seemingly is causing you nightmares, and then the guy that has to live that life, he has no control over any of this, and people are blaming him for the nightmares, the horrible nightmares. And when we see that represented on screen as well, it's beautifully done, mesmerizing in the worst way possible, in a way that's like, whoa, this is really a lot. Like, if this is happening in your dream, this is uncomfortable to watch. And that's what I would say about this film. There are many scenes in this film that is uncomfortable to watch, and yet I couldn't take my eyes off of it. It's one of those films that feels artsy, but actually is a reason that it has that indie vibe for it. Nic Cage holds presence on screen like nobody's business. It's up there probably in my top 5 performances from Nic Cage, for him specifically. Now, the film itself, I think it's going to have a lasting effect on some people. It's going to make them think about like how this would affect society. It's going to make you think, if this ever happened, or we ever had the technology to go into people's dreams, this is totally what would happen, and the societal impacts of that. I think whether you're going to go back to watch this film again depends on how much you talk about it with your friends afterwards. Sort of like a Monty Python film. Moments in the film that you kind of want to talk about, that moment when he did this, the awkward scenes when he did this. But I can't see myself going back and revisiting this one like I would an action film of Nic Cage, or even Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That kind of performance, because this is such an uncomfortable watch. But it is also, in my opinion, brilliant, really interesting, different film. I like to have a film with a genre that seems almost new and fresh. We've had similar, but not quite like this, and I think this feels like a film that's made for Nic Cage. So although the other performances in this were great, that of like the family, of how they are being affected by their dad's fame on both positive and negative, that's interesting performances there. The filming style itself is very grainy, very handheld, and that helps to enhance the feeling and the tone that they're going for. Very well crafted, interesting, different. I urge everybody, if you're not into the Marvels, and I have surprisingly enjoyed the Marvels a lot as well, don't go with the negatives on that one. Choose for yourself. But if that's not your cup of tea and you're done with superhero films, this may well be something you want to venture out into the cinema for and have those conversation topics. Let me know in the comments below, what is your top 3 Nicolas Cage's films of all time? Nic Cage films. I'm going to give this 4.5 Nicolas Cages out of 5.
You got one. Congratulations.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very weird and out there, interesting dialogue, but such a strange film that I'll probably think about it for quite a while. Thanks so much for watching, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.